Hey guys, welcome back. It's Ripe again, back with another homeowner association story. In this video, an entitled HOA Karen pulled a gun on me because I questioned her authority as a homeowner association member. Let's dive right into the video. And the first one is titled, HOA sold my mom's property without her knowledge. And this one is from r/legal advice. So my mom, 68 female, has lived in her condo for almost 15 years. It is a modest 2-bedroom in a decent neighborhood that she purchased after my dad passed away. She lives on a fixed income, social security and a small pension from my dad's former employer. She has always been independent and proud of managing her own affairs. Last weekend though, I got a frantic call from her. She was in tears, barely able to speak. When I finally got her to calm down, what she told me made my blood run cold. So a man had shown up at her door with documents claiming that he now owned her condo. According to him, he had purchased it at an HOA foreclosure auction 3 weeks ago. My first thought was that this had to be some kind of scam. I told her not to sign anything or give him any information. I drove over immediately, I live about 45 minutes away, and asked this guy to show me the paperwork. And sure enough, he had what appeared to be legitimate documentation. A deed transfer, auction paperwork, and something called a certificate of sale. The paperwork stated that the property had been sold due to so-called unpaid HOA fees totaling $5,800. The purchase price at auction, $78,000. And let's be clear, her condo is worth at least $210,000 in today's market. I was stunned. My mom has owned this place outright for years, no mortgage, and she has always been meticulous about her bills. I have helped her set up automatic payments for most things, but the HOA dues were one thing that she insisted on handling herself because the amount changed slightly each quarter. When I questioned her about the HOA dues, she swore up and down that she never received any notices about being delinquent. No letters, no calls, nothing taped to her door. She said she would have called me immediately if something like that happened. This new owner was surprisingly polite but firm. He said he understood that this was upsetting, but that the sale was legal and he expected her to vacate within 30 days. He mentioned that he was being generous with the timeline since legally he could force her out much sooner. I told him that we needed time to look into this and that we would be consulting an attorney. He shrugged and said that was fine, but that it would not change anything. Then he handed my mom his business card and left. The moment he was gone, my mom broke down again. She kept saying, "Where will I go? This is my home. I paid for it. How can they just take it?" I spent the entire day going through her paperwork and I found her HOA payment records, which showed that she had indeed missed a few payments over the past year and a half. It looks like she had been confused about the payment schedule after they switched to a new management company. But $5,800 in missed payments? That seemed excessive for a condo with quarterly dues of around $450. I also found late notices from the HOA that she had set aside in a folder but apparently never opened. When I asked her about them, she admitted that she had been struggling with her memory lately and that managing her mail had become overwhelming. She thought the envelopes were just regular HOA newsletters or announcements. There were also some certified mail slips that she had signed, but could not recall what they were for, and honestly, this hit me like a ton of bricks. My mom has been showing signs of memory issues for a while now, but I chalked it up to normal aging. Now I'm realizing it's probably more serious than I thought, and I feel terrible for not being more involved in her finances. Yesterday, I called the HOA management company and they confirmed that they had sent multiple notices to my mom about the delinquent payments, including certified letters, and even had someone post notices on her door. They claim that they followed all legal procedures before proceeding with the foreclosure. When I asked why they would foreclose over such a relatively small amount instead of working out a payment plan, the representative became defensive. She said that they had attempted to contact my mom numerous times to set up a payment plan, but got no response. She also mentioned that their bylaws allow for foreclosure after dues are delinquent for more than 6 months. I requested all copies of all the notices they sent and evidence that they were actually delivered. They said that they would have to check with their legal department about providing those records, and I've spent the last 24 hours in a panic researching HOA foreclosure laws in our state. From what I can tell, yes, HOAs can foreclose on properties for unpaid dues in most states, often even without going through the courts. Non-judicial foreclosure. And by the way, guys, considering that we are talking here about homeowner associations, this is just crazy. This almost feels like being kicked out by a landlord, just that this landlord, in this case the HOA, seems to have more power than any normal landlord. What a horrific situation. Anyway, the process seems incredibly predatory, especially in cases like this where the property was sold for a fraction of its value over a relatively small debt. My mom is devastated. This is her home. All her memories with my dad are there. Most of her retirement savings went into buying this place so she would have security in her older years. Now she is facing homelessness because of missed HOA payments that she was not even aware of. I've called a few attorneys but have not found one who specializes in this area yet. I'm worried about the timeline. This new owner expects her out in 30 days. I'm desperate for any advice. My mom does not deserve this. She had worked hard her whole life, and to lose everything over missed HOA dues seems criminally unjust. Comment number 1, attorney here, though not in your state. Unfortunately, yes, this is legal in most states. HOAs have extraordinary powers when it comes to collecting dues, including the ability to foreclose. The timeline and specific procedures vary by state, and your first step though is to consult with a real estate attorney who specializes in HOA law immediately. Don't wait, the clock is ticking. In some states, there is a right of redemption period after foreclosure where the original owner can reclaim the property by paying the debt plus costs and interest. If your state has this provision, you will want to move quickly. The fact that your mom may have diminished capacity could potentially help your case, especially if she was unable to understand the significance of the notices she received. If she has a documented medical condition, that could strengthen your position. As for getting back the difference between the sale price and market value, it varies by state. In some places, yes, the homeowner is entitled to the excess proceeds after the debt and costs are paid. In others, the purchaser keeps it all. Regarding what type of attorney, you need someone who specializes in real estate law with specific experience fighting HOA foreclosures. Call your state bar association for referrals. Good luck, these cases are challenging but not always hopeless. And now we got an update to the story, and it reads like this. So after reading your comments, I immediately contacted several attorneys and found one who specializes in both real estate law and elder advocacy. She was amazing from the start, confident, knowledgeable, and genuinely outraged by what happened to my mom. The first thing our attorney did was file for an emergency temporary restraining order to prevent the new owner from taking possession while we fought the sale. The judge granted it after we got my mom evaluated by a doctor who confirmed that she has early-stage dementia. Between her medical condition and the questionable circumstances of the sale, the judge agreed that we deserve time to investigate. And oh boy, did our investigation uncover some serious issues. The HOA had not properly followed their own bylaws regarding notice requirements. They had actually calculated the $5,800 debt incorrectly. Almost half of it was improper collection fees that were not even authorized by the HOA's governing documents. Like, apparently they just made up fees to inflate the debt. We also discovered that while they did send certified mail to my mom, it was often signed for by a neighbor when my mom was not home, which does not constitute proper legal notice in our state. The HOA management company had also failed to post all the required public notices about the auction. The most infuriating thing we found was that they had an outdated emergency contact form for my mom that still listed my dad, who passed away years ago, so they never attempted to contact any family members before proceeding with the foreclosure. They literally had his name and an old disconnected phone number on file and made zero effort to find alternative contacts. My mom's doctor was incredibly helpful, by the way. He provided detailed documentation confirming her cognitive decline and explicitly stated that she would have been unlikely to fully comprehend the significance of the notices even if she had opened them. That documentation turned out to be crucial to our case. So our attorney filed a lawsuit to void the foreclosure sale based on all these issues: the procedural irregularities, failure to provide adequate notice, the grossly inadequate sale price, my mom's diminished capacity, and what our lawyer called predatory practices targeting a vulnerable elderly homeowner. She did not pull any punches in the filing. While we were preparing for court, our attorney also opened negotiations with both the HOA and the buyer. At first, both were totally stubborn. The HOA insisted they had followed all legal procedures, and the buyer kept saying that he had purchased the property legally and in good faith. Yeah, I bet. Very good faith. What a deal. Anyway, it was infuriating, and then with our attorney's approval, I contacted a local news station that does consumer advocacy stories. I figured we had nothing to lose at that point. They were immediately interested. Apparently HOA horror stories get good ratings, and began investigating. It was amazing how quickly things changed once a reporter started making calls. The HOA president suddenly became very concerned about their public image, and about 2 weeks before our court date, the HOA's attorney reached out to discuss settlement. It turns out, once they reviewed their files more carefully, and probably had the insurance company look at them too, they realized that they had indeed made several procedural errors that would likely cause them to lose in court. The negative publicity was also freaking out their board members. After some intense negotiation, we reached a settlement that honestly was better than I expected. The HOA agreed to petition the court to void the foreclosure sale. The buyer would be refunded his purchase price plus what they called a small inconvenience fee from the HOA's insurance. My mom would only have to pay the legitimate portion of the back dues, which was about $2,700, and not all those excessive fees that they tried to tag on. The HOA also agreed to implement new procedures for dealing with potentially vulnerable homeowners, including better efforts to contact emergency contacts or family members before proceeding with collection measures. My mom agreed to set up automatic payments for her HOA dues going forward, and they waived all late fees and collection costs. The court approved the settlement and voided the foreclosure sale, so my mom still owns her condo. The new owner turned out to be surprisingly understanding. Once the full situation was explained to him, I think he realized that he was about to get dragged into a messy legal battle and was happy to take his money and walk away. This whole experience made it painfully clear that my mom needs more support than I realized. So we've set up automatic payments for all her bills now, and I've arranged a system where I can monitor her accounts remotely, with her permission of course, and I've also started doing regular check-ins about her finances and mail, and we have made me her financial power of attorney. We have even met with an elder law attorney to get all her affairs in order, including advance directives and a proper estate plan. Honestly, I've learned so much about how vulnerable elderly homeowners can be to these predatory practices. It is scary, honestly. I'm now volunteering with a local senior advocacy group to push for legislative changes in our state to provide better protections against HOA foreclosures, especially for elderly or disabled homeowners. So for anyone facing a similar situation, my advice is to act immediately, because time is actually critical in these cases. And of course, document absolutely everything. If cognitive issues might be involved, get proper medical evaluations right away, find an attorney who specializes in both real estate and elder law. The combination was key for us, and don't be afraid to seek media attention if appropriate. It was a game changer in our case. Check every tiny procedural detail of the foreclosure process, because any error could be your way to challenge the sale. And definitely look into community resources for seniors facing housing issues. There's more help out there than you might think. This whole experience has been a wake-up call about how predatory our system can be towards vulnerable people. It's also shown me how important it is to monitor the financial affairs of elderly parents, even when they seem capable of managing on their own. My mom always appeared so independent and on top of things, I never imagined something like this could happen. Thank you again to everyone who offered advice and support. You helped us fight back and win. And yeah guys, if you still enjoy the HOA stories, especially the legal advice ones, because we don't do them that often, then please don't forget to like the video, because it would help me tremendously, especially since YouTube is giving real voice creators a really tough time right now. Me and a couple of other readers are basically getting punished for not posting AI stories read by a computer voice. And yeah, I know how crazy that sounds, but it's actually true. Anyway, the next one is titled HOA Karen pulls a gun on me because I questioned her authority. So my wife and I had been saving and planning, and the time had finally arrived. We shopped all over the area with all our musts, cans, and all along the spectrum in between. It came together that we found a perfectly sized home for us to start a family that was in an area of the city with a good school system and was well positioned for both of our works, checked off various other boxes we had on our list, and was not connected to any HOA. If I'd been a bit more worldly, then I think I would have figured out why it was not optimal that this house, while appearing to fulfill all our criteria on the surface, had a few details that reared their heads as soon as the right questions were asked. One of these details was the fact that the neighborhood it was in was actually a part of an HOA. The house was an exception, and exceptions such as these are often key targets for HOA expansion programs. What can happen to these houses is the HOA will stay quiet and well behaved until the property is sold, and then they will swoop in so that the new homeowners think that they have no choice but to join the HOA. One undeniable benefit to all the stories like this that I've listened to is the fact that I knew so many of the limitations to their authority that power-hungry HOA board members try to fight against when in their imagined philosophical battle. So they came to me and tried to slide an HOA contract amongst the other welcome to the neighborhood paperwork as if it was the most natural thing in the world. Too bad for them, I knew better. I brought the complaint up to the HOA community meeting after stating that I was adjacent to the HOA community but was not actually a part of it. I even went so far as to bluff and claim that I would submit formal complaints to the local government in response to the situation if I discovered that any other homes in the area had been treated this way in recent years. All this did little besides put a chip on a certain HOA member's shoulder and a target on my back. Karen would go on to state that my behavior had directly threatened her success in her job role and consequently her job and income. Long story short, Karen said that she would go into poverty and be unable to feed her children if I did not stop my criminal behavior that consisted solely of making the community aware of misleading and dangerous business practices impacting the area. It was a few months later when something broke Karen's patience and remaining sanity. There was an event going on at a local park, and I attended the event and made a not insignificant donation to the foundation that the event was for. It was partially run by the HOA, so Karen was behind the line serving food when I came through and grabbed my portion. When I did, I thanked her directly in an act that she would later claim, challenged and mocked her so that she would be humiliated if she continued to let me behave in this way. In this completely normal and sane way. I'm rolling my eyes if you cannot tell. It was 2 days after this event that events came to a head in one of the most unforgettable afternoons of my life. So I was alone at home, and fortunately my wife and kids were having dinner with a friend of my wife. I could not make it because I had to finish a project at work. I was finally feeling comfortable in my flow state and making significant progress towards completion of my project when the doorbell rang. I checked my peephole and found myself a bit concerned when I saw Karen on my doorstep. "Hey Karen, can I help you with something?" I asked. She replied, "You should be able to, but I need you to open the door. I cannot hold a civil conversation if I have to scream through the front door the whole time." Karen had been a bother plenty of times in the past to me and to other non-HOA homes in the area, and I figured that the situation could only become more of a nuisance if I did not keep up a little bit of civility. So then I opened the door, and when she just met my gaze for a moment expectantly, I added, "Come on in." So she stepped into the entryway and we exchanged some inane comments about the weather that literally no one can make sound interesting. She stared around the room, entranced it seemed by the lighting fixture in the entry hall space. After the conversation proceeded with steadily slimmer hopes of it ending soon, Karen finally revealed her hand by opening up her large purse and pulling out a clipboard. "Alright OP, your entryway is nearly sufficient, but there are a few things I would like you to fix. They are nothing compared to the plethora of notes I have on your decorations outside, by the way. You consistently disrupt the uniformity of the neighborhood with your rogue decisions," she said. I wish I could have claimed a non-lame comeback, but all that came out at first was, "Huh?" "We can get into the notes on the outdoors after I inspect the rest of the house." "You're not doing that," I said. "Of course I am," she replied. "No." I kept things as simple and straightforward as I could. "And why do you think you are able to stop me?" I was utterly blown away by the condensation she was carrying herself with at this point. "Karen, I'm not a part of your HOA. You have no authority to be in my home under official capacity. I invited you in, sure, but I'm going to have to ask you to leave now." We passed a few more things back and forth, but I'll be honest, the shock of the following action made my recall of the specific words we exchanged blurry, because I was halfway through a retort when suddenly I had the barrel of a gun in my face. Suddenly, I could not be still or quiet enough. Karen said, "You will walk me through the house and let me finish my inspection, and then you will listen to my feedback, or I will use this." Well, sure as hell I was not about to challenge that, so I start walking her through my house waiting for an opportunity. And an opportunity came. My heart leaped into my throat when I dove into my bathroom, pulling the door shut behind me. I locked the door and dialed 911, all in what felt like one fluid, adrenaline-fueled motion. When I heard the operator on the line, I did not say anything at first and just held the phone up so that Karen could be heard screaming and threatening me on the other side of the locked door. Then I brought the phone back to my ear and said, "I'm being threatened with a gun in my home. I locked myself in my bathroom, but she is trying to get in here to hurt me. Please send help. I'm at XYZ Street." Karen stopped her banging and screaming when she heard what I said to the operator, but my heart did not stop banging in my chest until she was being pushed into the back of the patrol car. I still remember the way tears came out of me in a flood the instant I saw my wife and kids come out of the siren-lit night. I gave my testimony and Karen was found with a weapon that fit my description, but what helped me to be able to press charges was the dispatcher's voice recording in which the screaming could be identified as Karen's voice. Along with a few other assault charges that Karen had tried to bury, it was enough to solidify trespassing, assault and criminal threat charges and getting jail time. The HOA had ended up disowning her from the board and condemned all of her actions. They sent me gifts of apology and I've not had any complaints with them since. In fact, I now have great relationships with all of my neighbors, even if I have no need for the HOA itself. The board of the HOA also built more restrictive policies to make sure that nothing could be misinterpreted in the future. Realistically, nothing was gonna stop Karen from threatening someone at some point if she was truly that far gone, but I respect the move for the public image. Me and my wife feel safe in our community now, and we know that people are looking out for us in our neighborhood. We like to return the favor and be good members of the community as well. And before we end the video, we will read one last interesting story from r/pettyrevenge. This one is titled, "You live by the speakerphone and you are shamed by the speakerphone." So I worked in a cubicle farm. There were 4 rows of 4 cubicles. There was one coworker who never used the handset on his phone. Every call he made or received was made using the speaker. He also tended to shout into it, even though it was not necessary to raise his voice to be picked up by the microphone. There had been a few complaints from some of us to him, but he ignored them. One Monday morning, he called the doctor's office to report that he was having urinary troubles. He made an appointment for the next morning at 9 a.m. Then he called our boss to say that he would be coming in late tomorrow. All of this was broadcast via his speaker and loud voice. I talked my wife into calling his extension the next morning while he was at the doctor's office to leave a message using a script I wrote out for her. She did and left the message on his voicemail after blocking her caller ID. When he arrived at the office after the doctor's appointment, he started listening to his voicemail messages on speaker. The first was work-related, but the second was the one my wife left for him. It said something like, "Mr. Smith, this is Jane from Dr. Smith's office. We need for you to come back here today if possible. You were supposed to give us a urine sample, not a sperm sample." He quickly punched the end call button, but it was too late. The whole cube farm erupted in laughter. He knew that it had to be one of us, but did not recognize the voice. He never used the speakerphone again. And yeah guys, thanks for watching. I will see you again tomorrow, and please check out my endless playlist on the left.